Tonight, I am riding under an indigo sky. The moons hang above, pale, cratered. I'm at a loss for words, and ever since taking up the vocation of traveling historian, that hasn't really happened. I figure I'd make a good historian, thanks to longevity and all that. And after all, I haven't resumed aging normally, even after my cure. Human as can be. Yeah, right. But it's not like I mind it, being young forever, or at least for longer. After all, I think now, more than ever, it's safe to say that nothing lasts forever. I'm ranting. Sorry about that. Describing celestial bodies, too. Sorry about that also. I just don't want to lower my eyes right now to describe the history I've sworn to record. But an oath's an oath, and someone should tell the story, even if no one's around to hear it. Whatever piece remains feels thin. Most of us can't see it. War is pressing in. Its shadow is long and cold and backdropped by fire. I'm not trying to be a poet. Things just feel heavier when it seems we're at the start of the end. But let's get more literal, as much as I'd rather not. 20 years have passed since that cart of prisoners rolled into Helgen on the 17th of last seed, 4E 201. And the Dragonborn story began. For my former kind and kin, that span is a heartbeat between one petty drama and the next. Even so, when I look at what followed, an empire reborn, and then an empire bled, I am reminded that history is not really composed of time, but of what people do with it. And the Dragonborn, he has done a lot. I'll leave other books to catalog his rise, his conquest, and his taking of the Septim name. This account I pen right now will focus on what I expect to be the final war with the Thalmor and their Altmiri dominion. I write this very reluctantly, on the lead-up to what may be the death of an empire, overseen by someone who could rightly be called the mightiest emperor in Tamriel's history, and my closest friend. Anvil fell at sunrise, 17th of first seed, 4E 222. From the ramparts of Kvatch, where I was watching, Dominion sails spread across the Abyssine Sea, covering the glittering water and seconds that suggested the influence of magic. Before the bells finished their second clamor, Mer warriors were already on the shores, and a little more than an hour after that, every chapel spire and overhang carried gilded banners that showed broken men. And I do not mean depicted them in art. The Dominion used some kind of magic to weave the men, women, and children of Anvil into their banners, silk through skin, leaving them screaming and weeping above their own burning city. The Dominion called them Valathin Lir en Caldor, the singing banners of conquest. Others and I went down hours later and joined a mission to pull out survivors. We saved many, but few managed to flee in time to avoid the Golden Legions. Some of us slipped into the smoldering city, looking to rescue slaves or captives. I wish we had not. Smoke curled from doorways where wives had barricaded themselves in with their children. The Thalmor never even tried to enter. They had planned for desperate women and helpless children. I had to watch as they sealed them within their homes before fixing these strange devices to open doors or windows. They called them house dragons, joking as they lit the things and turned the houses into furnaces. Each one. Dominion mages continued to stitch the dead and the living they captured into golden banners, stretching them across poles over avenues, burning towers and crumbling battlements, each one long and loud with pain, flesh fused with black and gold threads. None of those people could be saved. Only released. Those brave few and I, we did what we could before we fled. But I saw more than just the raw horror of it. I saw how the Altmiri had done it. The seamer among them had set runes in the ocean foam itself, charming waves and sea winds, hiding them from sight. Now we watched those same Mer pay the sea back. The tide, dragging charred bodies into deep waters with an unnatural pull. Serpents I've never before seen, coiled and sloshed in the wake, eating the dead and the living that were tossed in after them. And they were not finished, not by a stretch. The Thalmor and their allies marched inland into the golden fields, named for the wheat and golden grass that grows there. And there, they have stopped. This is where we all have stopped. This is the beginning of an invasion, and another war, in violation of words given and treaties written. But they are here, by the spite of Cold Harbor. They are here. I counted banners from Somerset, Valenwood, and elsewhere. I saw bronze-mast aurorans in Meridia's prism light. I saw the chitinous colossi with the smell of Dagon's sulfur and forges clinging to them. I even saw a few trolls, pale as frost, Moloch Baal's pets taken on loan from his menagerie of monsters. We of the Empire are standing opposite them. There is no such host at my back, however. No Daedra stand in ranks beneath the dragon's banner. No golden legions, no great inhuman engines. Still, we have what they do not, and that might be enough. He might be enough. My mind falls back as I look upon him, standing before us all horned and alone. Back to Windhelm, First Seed, 4E 203. Snow fell sideways, carried on howling winds the night the Dragonborn spoke to me about what he carried and what it meant. Power, he said, weighs much. However, what weighs even more are the promises made to those who depend on it. It is a tricky weight, because those who can bear it can pull on it too. He did not smile when he spoke that night. It was not a jest hidden between those called royal, those of the fanged blood, doomed to rule, be it at the behest of the bat or the dragon. At the time, I did not really understand him. But as I watch mercenary sellswords and half-trained wizards gather to a black and white standard, I think I understand it now. As I watch them pledge themselves to battle, and likely death or torture at the hands of a merciless foe, as I watch them do so without demanding payment or carrying favor, I think I finally get it. But I doubt that I can write it, and make you understand it. It is an answer written in the air, and the grass, and the blood about to be spilled, and it is not something that can be read, or that should be understood, simply by waving eyes before letters on a page. The weight, the real weight, and how it weighs on us all, not just the man we chose to bear it. He stands on the golden fields. The newly named septum wears dragon bones bound with daedric iron, and the late light makes him read as a dark cut in the sky. The jagged crown's prongs rise around the horns of his helm, short compared to the crown of dragon ivory that proved his birthright. His palms rest upon the blood-scowl blade, its stony point set into the fertile ground. Another emperor would repeat speeches or recite his own, but he is a man of few words. Few words and impossible feats. Acts to make an empire. Acts to save the world of men. He is my friend. I have seen him as little more than that. Too serious, but kind. Too ignoble to predict, but too good a person to meet to. But right now, he's not a person, not even to me. He stands only a few feet away from me. I could reach out and touch his back. But in this moment, I know I cannot reach where he is standing. I cannot even brush it. That broad back that would bear the weight of the world does not belong to my friend. It belongs to my emperor. Words I tremble to write, that I doubt I could speak, but they are the truth. The hush that now surrounds us is worse than any war cry. And, if nothing else, I must record it. The hush is worse than any war cry. Even the companions go still in their boisterous ranks. Between cuirasses pools mortal sweat. Between heartbeats, mortal doubt. The Dominion's line runs to the horizon. Ours is uneven. Fighters' Guild mercenaries polish dented shields and chest plates while the members of the local Mages Guild recite spells. The many apprentices whispering ward forms with shivering lips. City guards from Coral and Bravo, those who could be called to the field, stand brave, their trembling hands and pale faces doing little to shame the courage that keeps them here. The Imperial Arena's grand champion holds a helmet under one arm, old raiment scarred and still bright in the early light. Behind him, fatalistic and bearing the bravery of men and women who face death continuously, the yellow team and the blue team warriors of the arena stand together for what I understand to be the first time in generations. Gritting teeth and exchanging mad glances, they look less like stalwart teammates and more like eager competitors, ready to begin out-killing their competition. And, even now, a half-dozen Dawn Guards stand around us. Around me. And I cannot help but notice that their presence, normally watchful, prejudiced even, seems strangely protective now. As if they want me to live through this. As if they know someone needs to tell this story. There are others, but not in great numbers. Some are braver or better at hiding their fear, but all can draw strength from the Emperor. After all, he does not stand before us alone either. The Elder Scroll on his back gives off a pearly glow, a luminescence that can be seen by all but casts no light. The words of a god, a shred of Akatosh's own self, wrapped up and ready for whatever he plans to do with it. Does he truly intend to use it? Read it here? Will he cast them forward in time like Alduin once was, cutting open time's skin with the thing on his back? Will he draw that blade here? The valley's quiet shatters then, fills with deceptively elegant trumpets and the thunder of marching feet. I write on, even now, my maged quill scratching. On the flanks, Auroran phalanxes lower spears that shine from their heads, moving with an inhuman order and lockstep. The sky turns violet before its time, tainted by whatever magic the Outmeri are summoning. A soldier retches behind me. He and I have just seen a titan form lift the banner of Mehrunes Dagon with a sigil set in molten brass. When the danger plants it, the winds roll out and the wheat smolders in waves. I take my place at the Emperor's right, quill in one hand, crossbow in the other. Though I did get a bit weaker physically once becoming a human, I still have more than enough strength to heft these damn Dawn Guard contraptions with ease, and I'm accurate even with one hand. Reloading, though, I'll have to stop writing for that. I lean in and say, Falmor are always so showy. Elves are really into playing up the theatrics of their war crimes. He says nothing, which I expect, so I continue. But, you know, I add, there is one they fear. At those words, he shifts, lifting the large blade he wields from the ground, and then, starting forward, speaking only 2 words, and only to me. I know. His forward movement is like a chain which pulls everyone else forward. The chains, invisible though they are, and of various length, are unbreakable. Some pause, some linger, some hesitate, but not a one runs. We are Tamriel. We are the Empire. And if the Falmor wish to make us kneel, then we will show them what Pelinel Whitestrake showed the Aliads all those centuries ago. The Empire is forged of those who came in bondage, and we will never kneel to threats or tyrants again. The wind shifts. The Aurorans advance, and the Falmor look ready to give chase. The Dragonborn exhales a word older than the common speech, and our banners ripple as if that sound gave the world breath anew. Here, the quill has to stop. The battle will start soon, and I will be needed. By the people around me, by my Emperor before me, by my friend beside me. Here I stop for the time being, and hide away this tome. Hopefully, I will continue it after. If not, then I hope it will be found and spread, so that the story will not end here, even if we all must. For Cyrodiil. For Tamriel. For all the free peoples of Nirn. Serana Volgaur, Imperial Historian. Nineteenth of First Seed, 4E, 222. I am writing again. I am alive. I can hardly believe either fact, nor can I keep my hands from trembling as I write. But they are steady enough to hold the quill, and so I sent my thoughts back to what I saw. To begin with, the encirclement was immediate. The Auroran flanks wrapped around us without a loud resistance. Our line was ragged, but still a line, and they brought so many soldiers that we soon had to wrap around ourselves to keep them in front of us. The Falmor center advanced without hesitation, bold and arrogant as everything else they represented, approaching in formal form. Infuriating as it was to see them taking us so lightly, it bought time, and trust me, at that moment, we were happy to buy anything with the effort we were making. You know, it stinks to be in that place, right between hope and despair, where you're very sure you're going to die horribly, but something gives you just enough hope to not say it out loud. That was me. No, that was all of us. And the reason was singular. They tried to break our circle with massed cavalry, sending a howling horde of stomping horses ridden by the endless spawn of the Somerset nobility. They came on like performers in a show, making a spectacle of trotting up, lances laced with waving banners, before lowering them with such uniformity that I swear there's no way it was not choreographed beforehand. Staring at their coming line was hard, their silver armor reflecting the sun like a bunch of bouncing prisms, closing in faster and faster. The Dragonborn ended that pompous parade with a single breath. Fus Rota! One shout scattered riders like chaff and drove the horses off in terror. None of their doe-eyed mounts were willing to charge the man with the dragon's soul and voice, splitting like flame before a jet of water. We cheered, watching third and fourth sons and daughters of the Dominion tumble off their horses or be tossed into the air by the raw power of our emperor. But our shouts were short-lived, since the real fight began right after the last simpering nobles had picked themselves up off the field of battle and run after their fleeing horses. The Aurorans formed themselves into squads of 5, each squad taking command of 10 Mer warriors of the Dominion. Massive and glowing, with steel skins and golden eyes, they led their crazed elven kin to us like lances made of men and Daedra. Our line closed into a ring and held as best it could, but the Daedra leading the packs punched holes in us, and it was almost over the moment it had begun. But the Dragonborn Emperor was with us, and he reminded all in that moment that he was also so much more. He was not only the Emperor of Tamriel, but also one of the most accomplished mages to walk this world. His spells spilled out like invisible water, the air glowing around us with shades of green and red. His power and incantations drove the fear out of our chests. They put strength into tired and trembling arms, and they closed mortal wounds before they could steal away our lives. It's hard for me to describe him, but he moved like a storm, fighting like a dragon. I have seen him fight many times. I have also seen him hide more than he shows. But not this time. This time, my friend used every edge, every tactic, every school of magic, and every ounce of muscle and will. He held nothing back, and by that effort, he held the tide, and held it nearly alone. There were stretches when I thought we would fold, moments when the shadows of war machines or the glow of new or ancient magic eclipsed all hope I could see for our survival. Each time, the moment was brought up short by the Emperor, and a new demonstration of his might or skill, a shape of power I had not yet seen from him. A hard choice at the exact second it mattered. A miracle each time. His blood-scowl blade plowed furrows through the ranks of Mer, cleaving quicksilver, moonstone, and empowered glass as easily as through the trampled wheat of the fields around us. I can barely describe it. Each cut tore into people with surreal ease, either moving through armor like it was not even there, or catching and crushing someone flat into the ground, or batting them away when the armor could resist. Sickle-shaped magicka arced outward until it bit the earth, leaving furrows as deep and long as any dragon's claw might make. The Dragonborn did things I did not know a man of any kind could achieve, moving the massive blade like it weighed nothing, filling a space with 16 slashes before anyone would have had the time to blink. He could vanish where a strike began and then reappear behind them or sending it before the swing concluded. The battle consumed 2 days. 2 days where every hour could be our last. 2 days in which the Dragonborn sustained us, held us, so we could hold him. We repainted the golden fields crimson, spilled fountains of blood thick enough to sate any of my former kin. How we could have gone for so long, I do not fully know myself. After a time, all I knew, all any of us seemed to know, was the thrum of battle and the dragon's roar. However, At midnight of the first day, it seemed our struggle would end. Too many of us had fallen at once. The line was collapsing in too many places for us to shore up, and our wounded were being slain, put beyond even the Emperor's ability to restore with magic, though most rose again under the staff of worms to fight anew. But, as before, he surprised us, the Dominion, and perhaps even wherever gods govern fate, as he shouted out loudly with his dragonborn power. But no fire rolled forth, no wave of force, no enchanting boon. Instead, his echoing voice split the heavens of the cloudy night, revealing 7 winged shapes his shout had summoned. 7 dragons. They fell upon the Mer host without mercy and burned trenches through the Dominion's lines. They pulled felled Daedra from their saddles and wrestled the titans among them to the ground. Their various shouts broke apart the Mer war engines, and, most importantly of all, they drove the Aldmeri back, allowing us precious moments to heal, rally, and reform our lines, which came not a second too soon. Though devastating, the surprise attack of even 7 powerful dragons was not enough to defeat the Elven war host, and the retaliation came soon after, skilled Daedra and High Elf casters dragging down nearly half of the dragons and forcing those that remained to retreat. The souls of the slain dragons streamed away into the sky, unclaimed by the watching Dragonborn. What he unleashed the next day would make most people speak of divinity. I mean, of actual gods. I need you to understand. I have never been religious. I have never been given over to worship, not of heroes or Daedra or the Aedra and their fancy temples and well-fed priests. But this stood apart from everything. And I don't know if it was just the truth of him, or the magic making me lightheaded, or my exhaustion from fighting for so long without rest. Maybe it was all of it. Maybe it was something more. But out on that golden field turned red, I felt like I was watching Talos rise a second time. No ordinary man could do a single of the 100 miracles he manifested in that battle alone. Only a god could stand in the place he occupied. Only a god. Or so I had wanted to believe. 17 silver princes served the Falmor as lords of war, the figureheads of their cause. 10 of these vaunted princes came to this field. 8 of them were slain over the course of the battle by the Dragonborn himself. The champion of the Imperial arena killed 1 in single combat. However, though only 1 of the 10 remained, the 10th was definitely above the rest. He was a radiant being, a master of sword and lord of spells. His presence was like a living spring of magicka itself, and each ring, each piece of armor, each armament which he wore on his back or at his waist augmented that natural power, focusing it into deadly potency. Shining and terrible, he first made himself known on the field of battle when he cut down the champion of the arena and avenged his cousin's death. Afterward, he did not cease his blade dance, severing the Archmage's hand in the later part of the battle and casting down the Staff of Worms from it, the loyal dead collapsing, leaving us to fend without them. By now, he could not be ignored. The Archmage's necromantic power had been almost as much a part of the reason we could fight on as the Dragonborn himself was. And now, that power was gone. Almost as soon as it was known that the power had been lost, the Companions appeared, and in their center, our Emperor. The Companions tried to face the Silver Prince, but were swept aside like loose straw. Before more could meet death at the end of the Prince's silver greatsword, however, the Dragonborn arrived. They met like an ocean wave meets a sheer cliff of stone, sparks spilling like spraying sea foam as their blades bit into each other. Now, let me be clear. As incredible as this Silver Prince was, as above most combatants as he was revealed to be, he was not a true match to our Emperor. If the Dragonborn had been fresh, if he had not been worn down by 2 days and a night of constant battle, of constant shouting, if the contest had been true and fair, then it would have been barely a contest at all. But this was not the way. The prince was a master of his own crafts, but the Dragonborn is a master of nearly all crafts. Had his potions not been expended, had his magic not been pushed to its limit, he would have chewed that Pompusmer up and spat him out bloody and broken upon the field. But that is not the story I get to tell. Blood ran from his nose and mouth like red roads to his soul. Red from overusing his shouts. Red from all the magic he had unleashed so freely. So freely that it still shook the air. Still hummed in my ears. He was far from at his best. And still he stood. Still he fought. And still, even spent as he was, their battle will seed 100 tales and 1,000 songs. I'm sure of it. The Bloodskull blades sang, parting the air forcefully enough to ring with each swing. Magic rippled, and the ground split under their feet. For long minutes they matched each other, blow for blow, and I am proud to say that the Elf Prince, for all his power and freshness to the field, struggled to match the pace of the wounded and staggered Dragonborn, my friend, my Emperor. I am convinced even now that if this had been all he had to show, then my friend would have left him as he left all of the other princes who had come forward to challenge him in this battle. But, as he would soon reveal, the Prince of the Altmeri had one more trick in reserve. Ayleid star magic. Forbidden, lost stuff of the blackest legends. It crashed into the Dragonborn like a river made of silver starfire, spilling around him so brightly I couldn't even keep watch throughout. In that moment, I felt my heart like I never have before, beating heavy, my sudden fear making my blood feel thick. As soon as the fires had settled enough for my eyes to return, I looked up and back. And there he was, our Emperor, my friend. Still standing, still alive. But the wounds he had now were terrible, and it was obvious almost as soon as I realized he was breathing that he would not be able to recover from this quickly enough. The others, the combatants of the arena, from the blue team and the yellow team, and the companions and those of the Fighters Guild who were still here, they rushed forward and tried to stand between them, to purchase the life of the Emperor with their own. None could hold against the Silver Prince, however, his star magic and blade carving him closer and closer to the Dragonborn. Our Emperor did not rush to meet him, instead forcing the breath from all who watched, as he unslung that which he had worn from the start of this fight. The Elder Scroll, our last and most tenuous hope. He opened it, eyes aflame as they stared down into whatever this scrap of the dragon god he was staring into could show him. His hands moved. He was doing something, touching the surface of the scroll. Why? What was he seeing? What was he doing? My questions would be answered, but not the way I felt they would be. The prince reached the Emperor in the midst of his workings with the scroll and drove his quicksilver greatsword through the scroll and into him. The blade bit low, driven through the Dragonborn above his left thigh, entering gleaming in silver and exiting crimson and gore-slicked. In that moment, it felt as if the Empire itself had been pierced, as if all of us still in the field shared that as a mortal blow. My friend, who had saved my life, even given me a life to save. And what could I do? Stand here? Remember his death to record later? As it turned out, no. There was more I could do, and would do, though even now, I am not sure if I did it correctly. The Dragonborn gripped the blade that pierced and pinned him, bloody teeth set. He turned away from the prince and tossed the torn scroll to me. I caught it, dropping my crossbow and falling to my knees in the same instant. Don't blame me. I'd been fighting for longer than 24 hours by then. And besides, one does not casually catch a tossed Elder Scroll. I've carried one before. I know its weight. I know what it does to your head and your stomach. They might call it a scroll, but that's only what it looks like superficially. It's actually the flayed skin of a dragon god himself, or at least something disturbingly close. I looked up for guidance, but he didn't have words to spare, and I knew this was in my hands now. I unrolled it on the ground before me, the tear in its surface mending as though it had never been there. And, with a deep breath, I looked down. The sensation was disorienting, like looking down into an endless window, foggy and indistinct and yet filled with everything and everyone that ever was. I blinked. I needed to look at it with more intention. My friend was doing something with it. I needed to find what. As if responding to me, the surface of the scroll shifted, becoming more opaque, white, and then lining with floating symbols of some kind. The script mocked letters, but each one was somehow an entire language playing dress-up in the form of a single word. My head pounded to look at them, and yet, even so, pieces clicked somewhere in my mind. A sentence, a deep spell of some kind that he was assembling. Now I needed to finish it. I could manipulate the words, the symbols, dragging them along with my fingers to assemble sentences of sequences. The lines I needed, however, were scattered among lines that were nothing but noise for the purposes of this spell. But I had no time for riddles. Focusing on the center, I saw, or rather felt, that the scroll would take a set of words, but only certain words in certain patterns. Patterns, words, phrases. I needed to figure this out faster. And so, blinking rapidly, I began to assemble them, half out of intuition alone. The first set offered to me seemed unrelated to each other, a cacophony containing the meanings of rot, golden, frenzied, duskborn, night, and many more. I quickly chose mending, something to heal, something that would save the Emperor. The second set was odd as well, but something more related, including tarnished, knight, peasant, king, god, and more. I chose Lord quickly, after not seeing Emperor, and failing to spot King a second time. I glanced up then, my blood running cold as I saw what was happening while I made my choices. The Dragonborn had forced himself upright, hands shaking on the blood-scowl sword. The prince who opposed him had drawn a fresh longsword from his belt and walked out towards him, leaving the quicksilver great blade still piercing the Emperor. They clashed, the prince throwing the Dragonborn to the ground in the first exchange. I had no time, and rapidly chose the next two, selecting Calling for the third place, and then Ally for the fourth. The rooms lit up, and then did exactly nothing. I began to look deep, frantically, feeling my eyes burn. There had to be more. There just had to be. What was I missing? I had no time. I ran my hands over the lines again, desperation making me feel clumsy as my fingers ran along the surface of the scroll. The script slid after my touch, merged, and suddenly made new sense, a new sentence. And then came the light. A flash of brilliance radiated out from the scroll, golden in color, before suddenly, golden motes, like fireflies, began to drift down and around me. First, it was a slow progression of swirling, heatless embers, but soon it became something more akin to a storm of soft fireflies. These drifting motes of light began to form, twisting and assembling themselves in a glowing humanoid shape, beginning from the feet and rolling up from there, glow reducing into new colors. From the bizarre fireflies of gold, a stranger emerged and stepped onto the field. He was one of the oddest men I had ever seen, and for a moment I was actually afraid I had summoned another member of the Dominion, so embellished and gaudy was his armor. But I could see through his short golden hair that he was indeed a man, not a mer, and soon the other differences stood out more and more to me. Both his hair and eyes were like glittering gold, luminescent, almost uncanny. And though he was a man of normal stature, shorter than the Dragonborn at a glance, he carried an air of largeness which singled him out as a ruler. As a lord, I realized. The man's armor of gold was worked so finely that every moment I stared at it revealed new details, and details within details. A flowering tree marked the plates, dragons, tiny figures of kneeling knights, and runes detailed into all spaces between. On him was no obscuring visor, but a crown instead, a circlet of gold, his hair spilling over it, short bangs drifting over bright eyes. And, in his hands, he bore two swords which were worse than just strange. Both gilded, both big enough to force regular men to wield them with both hands, even the Dragonborn. The first, the one borne in his right hand, was long and straight, with a sword blade shaped like a spiral, and a hilt and pommel shaped like the bones of a man, arms outstretched. It did something to the air around it, as if the sword was red-hot and disturbing the air, but deeper. The blade seemed to ring without making noise, and staring at it felt like something I shouldn't do. So I focused on the other, the great sword clutched in his left hand, and at once I regretted the decision. The blade was the strangest of all, like a leafless golden branch with many branching points, many edges, all coiled and wrapped around the main body of the primary branch, forming a strange spiral, but not a static one. You see, it moved. Those branch-like limbs twitching and flexing suddenly in their spiral, and in every glint and gleam of that golden weapon carried a silent scream you could almost hear. A hellish malevolence that almost seemed to drip and spill invisibly from the incredibly odd weapon, like an entire segment of the realm of Cold Harbor folded up into a golden sword of some kind. His eyes met mine briefly. He didn't ask who we were or why he had been called to this place. The stranger stepped into our battle like it was his own home. Only 2 sauntering steps taken before he was running, dashing across the scene, and straight for the fight, which had become the center of the battle around us. All could see his approach, except the 2 who were being approached, the Dragonborn and the Silver Prince, clashing in a struggle that had already gone to the Mer's favor. The prince raised his blade, paused as he angled to cleave into the Emperor's armor, but the strike was halted, cut short by many golden blades. The branch blades of the strange weapon groaned eerily as they coiled around the silver sword, locking the prince in place while the smiling straight blade closed in. With a one-armed thrust so potent and absolute that it held the Mer's body in place, the golden warrior pierced straight through the prince's chest, cleaving him before he had even realized the depth of his error. The proud Thalmor dying with triumph still written over most of his face. My friend rose in the space allotted, gaining his feet as the prince fell. Gritting crimson teeth, The Dragonborn grasped the blade that was embedded within him and snapped off the quicksilver hilt so that it would not get in his way, leaving the rest where it was. Together, the new warrior and our emperor stood before the gold and silver hordes of the Dominion, massive blades raised to battle. With the last of the invading princes broken and the arrival of the golden warrior, the Aldniri soon retreated. Having no taste for further losses, the spirits of the mortals broken as they labored to ferry the bodies of their princes back to Anvil. We let them go once they began to disengage, the remainder of our forces dwindling the low hundreds, and every one of us wounded and tired to the bone. However, even as the Dragonborn returned to us, the Golden Warrior did not, giving vicious chase to the retreating but still massive Mer army. I thought he may die out there. Some kind of Daedra himself summoned to fight till death. But hours after we ourselves had returned back to Coral, and the Emperor was being tended for his wounds and exhaustion, the Golden Warrior returned, and, like the fields outside, where once he was the color of gold, now he was deeply stained crimson. But that was not what I found so uncanny about his appearance when he did return. Though I observed him at a distance, even I could see without issue the expression upon his face. Others would later report it to me in more detail. A deep, terrible grin, a smile worn by a man possessed. It was then that I truly began to think back upon the act of the summoning. Had I done it correctly? Had I summoned what the Dragonborn had intended to? And even if I did, why had he waited so long before attempting it? What did it mean that, in order for him to reach the point that he would call upon this power, our Emperor, my friend, would wait until defeat was all but certain? What have I started? I guess I won't know until I see more, or until I speak with that Golden Warrior personally, and figure out who he is, where he comes from, and why he came here through the Elder Scroll. I hope I'll only find interesting answers, but more and more, as I examine the warrior from afar, I find an odd fear growing inside me. Fear of asking these questions at all. But ask them I will. Serana Volgahar, Imperial Historian.